And I had my little tagline that was make interesting companies, not interesting advertising. That was the gist. And long story short, this was completely impossible concept to sell. Like no one's going out there being like, oh yeah, I need to make my company more interesting so I don't have to do advertising sort of thing. So it was kind of interesting in theory, but like not usable in practice.
Hey, welcome to 10X Your Team with Cam and Otis. We're a father-son leadership podcast where we talk with other lifelong learners about making an impact and solving big problems. And we were just talking about my favorite subject in the green room. Maybe Alex's daughter will make a guest appearance. I don't believe my granddaughter will make a guest appearance because she hasn't figured out how to open the door yet.
She's tall enough to, though. It's scary.
Yes. So that will be happening very soon, I'm sure. So we will have a surprise.
If I was more handy, I would fix the door. If I could even use a screwdriver, it wouldn't be an issue. But as it is, I can't, and so I'm vulnerable to attack at any minute.
That is the best way to put it I think I've ever heard. Vulnerable to attack from your daughter. So, I am disappointed in the not handy screwdriver thing. We'll have to have a discussion after the show, Alex.
I'm ashamed myself, but you know what can I say? It's about who your dad was, right? My dad was more of a intellectual professor type and less of a DIY type. So yes, I've been cursed with that lack of ability, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, and Camden's been cursed with the ability, so it is a double-edged sword. Let me tell you.
I was about to say, what's worse? Because you got me thinking there, Alex. I built the wall that is for my daughter's nursery and all that. That door is also not on its hinges, and I haven't fixed that, and it's been over a year. So, which one's better? Because I have the skills to fix it, and I just don't.
you see, whereas me, I would just get like a proper man around to do it for me. So. And it would be done very quickly. So yeah, you're right. It's swings and roundabouts.
Yes.
Yeah.
And no bloody knuckles and no curse words taught to your daughter, right?
Yeah. Look at these delicate hands. It's shameful. Yeah. Look at there it goes.
Yeah, it's funny how life gets shaped like that. Many an hour handing I was the son who handed my dad the tools while we worked on engines to get the family car driving the next day so dad could go to work. Yes. There's a much deeper story there in how that all came about.
I was going to point out that I am your son because you got a whole busted down MG in your garage you haven't fixed. So your MG, my door, same kind of thing.
Who says it needs fixing?
It's just from looking at it at this point, huh?
Well, she just hasn't been driven in a few years. Let's just say
there you go.
I was to put
it's
the
nice
key
to
in
have
her.
The potential.
Yeah,
exactly.
If you fix everything, then you won't have anything to do.
You know what? And you got to fill the white space. Got to fill it with something. Because I don't know about you, but I got to stay busy and busy being trying to figure out where I want to go. And that really leads me to your focus in your business, Alex, with the strategy, man. I love talking about planning and strategy. What if your dad was kind of the professor guy? How did you get into creating strategy for businesses?
Oh, well, it was a very non-deliberate process. I started, first of all, I worked for L'Oréal and Ernst Young, and I was fired from both of them. So I had a completely disastrous initial start to my corporate career because I was I was following in the corporate footsteps. My dad was a partner at KPMG actually, so it really was that was the pathway where I failed miserably. And so then I went into advertising. And I was a sort of an account handler there, the client facing guy. And it was very unrelated to what I'm doing now. But while I was there, I had this sort of, I didn't know anything about strategy, and I got zero interest in strategy. I never read a book on strategy. Like, it was like nothing to me whatsoever. But I had this idea, which I thought was very, very clever and very, very innovative, where I noticed that there were certain businesses out there, bearing in mind I was coming at this from like an advertising lens, that were so kind of charismatic and interesting on the face of it that they didn't do advertising. Like, they didn't need to. There are actually even some businesses who they had a policy, we will never do paid advertising. So like Tesla's never done paid advertising. That's one example. Monster energy drinks for a long time. I don't know if they do it different now, but for a time they were like that. There's a cosmetics brand. I'm not sure that they're big in the United States, called Lush, but they're very interesting. They're the same. And I was really interested in, wow, like some companies, they're just so cool and interesting that the business is its own advertising. And I got really interested in this phenomenon, and I sort of packaged up this whole theory around how this happens. And then I thought, I want to create a company and sort of sell this theory to brands. And I had my little tagline that was, make interesting companies, not interesting advertising. That was the gist. And long story short, this was completely impossible concept to sell. Like, no one's going out there being like, I need to make my company more interesting so I don't have to do advertising, sort of thing. So it was kind of interesting in theory, but like not usable in practice. But what I discovered over time is that without realizing, I had been accidentally kind of backing into the world of business strategy, because what I was interpreting as being interesting businesses is essentially the same thing as what in a sort of HBR strategy world they would call, businesses with competitive advantage and, that are offering a unique differentiated form of value in their market. And I was just coming at it with like a different language and a different approach. But it basically turned out, I did this TEDx talk that did pretty well. And there was all these about my theory, and there was all these glowing comments in the below it. But there was this one kind of comment that really riled me, where someone said, this is basically just blue ocean strategy. And I don't know if you've read the book Blue Ocean Strategy, but you know the term anyway, right? So huge classic.
I've got it on the shelf behind me. I love the book.
It's a great book. But it tells you everything you need to know about me, that not only had I not read it, I hadn't even heard of it. Right? And I was like, who is this jerk? What is this? What's he saying? Like, I've stolen the idea. Anyway, about
he's trying to be a smart ass, right? He was trying to shoot you down.
He was. I was like, just give me praise. I'm here for praise, nothing else. Anyway, about 2 years later, I read the book and I was just head in my hands. Oh my God. Like, this is so similar. Completely different language, but the fundamentals were basically the same. And at first I was really like sort of depressed. I was like, all of my super creative ideas, they're actually like not original at all. But then on second thoughts, what I realized is, well, hold up. So if I, even being this sort of consultant type character, don't know any of this stuff, no wonder my clients, they don't know it either. And there's something about strategy to sort of like, to kind of like put a real sort of pin in your question. The interesting thing about strategy is that it is such important information and way of thinking and discipline. It's literally just deciding what a business does fundamentally at its core. And yet almost all businesses, business leaders, business owners are completely clueless about it. There's something about it that doesn't trickle through, right? That every single chief executive on the planet should read Blue Ocean Strategy and Porter and all this stuff, right? But almost none of them do. And then the ones who do read it, for whatever reason, they don't really apply it. It doesn't sink into their skull. So where you end up is like with this very important discipline that for some reason just isn't absorbed by the business world in general. And so where I've then kind of found my place, I guess, is that because I never read the books, never learned it, I never came at it through the normal path. I came at it through this very weird reverse engineered path. What it meant, the good thing is that it gave me a new way of talking about strategy, which broadly speaking has proved to be much more sticky and usable for a whole group of people out there who, for whatever reason, never got on with the classic textbook version of the stuff. And so that's sort of where I've ended up. And then I wrote my book, obviously, No Bullshit Strategy, which is kind of does what it says on the tin. And here we are.
I think it's super interesting with that, talking about like, because you don't have that deep background in strategy, you're able to approach it from a different direction. Because I think what we've talked about on the show before, Dad, as like these like great translators in fields sometimes come along, and it can allow these people who would never have an interest in it to then step into that field because I heard it in a normal way. I always think of, Stephen Dubner with Freakonomics. Like, if you don't know anything about economics, you can listen to that podcast, read his book, and you're like, oh my God, I get how the world works. Like, don't make me do the math though, right? Like, there's this really accessible thing there that's really cool. Could you talk some about your internal psychology going through that? Because as much as like we could say there's a value to saying things differently, when it gets pointed out to you that you're kind of, even if it was accidental, parroting what someone else said or saying it just a different way, it's really easy to let that hit your ego really hard and fall apart. Like, oh, I guess I got to find something else to do. It's already been done before. This book's already been written. How did you manage to double down into that? Because I do think there's a great value there, but it's also really easy, I think, to turn the other direction.
Well, it wasn't really much of, obviously I was disappointed from a kind of ego level. Business-wise, it wasn't really a problem because everything that I was saying, at that time I was obviously working with sort of smaller businesses, not kind of like mum and pop, like, dry cleaner, cafe type businesses, but like scale up CPG brands in the UK, stuff like that. Because that was the sort of the area where I was most networked, food and drink, these kind of things, the sort of grocery store brands. And none of these people had any clue about any of this stuff at all, zero. And so it didn't matter to me really, or it didn't matter for my business rather, that I was kind of not original. Because then I just realized, well, the people out there who do understand this stuff, if they're in McKinsey or wherever they are, they're not working with the companies that I'm working with. So ultimately, right, I have this actual sort of like white space to attack for myself because there is just like, I don't know if you notice, maybe it's different in the United States. I've got American clients. I don't think it is that different. Like, if you look at how many branding agencies are there in the world, there are thousands. It's insane. And the reason for that is that every single company, in a very, very basic way, at some point they think, oh, I need a logo or something like that, right? So there's demand in that market. If you look at how many like pure play, the dog attacking me, not my daughter. So, it's been, oh no, here she is.
There you are.
Off you go. I might have to transport her out because otherwise I won't have it. Hang on a second.
I love it.
Giggling in the background.
Got to keep it in. It's just too good.
Oh yeah.
All right. Okay. Let's see. I don't know if that's going to work. I've really tried to jam the door. All right. So
we're shipping you a hammer, Alex. Hammer in a couple days.
All it takes. I can use a hammer. He's got thousands of branding agencies out there because people want branding. But what you'll find is there are almost no pure play strategy consultants. Certainly not operating as I was at that time at a kind of smaller business level. Yeah, you've got Roger Martin out there, charging $100,000 a day or whatever to Ford, but because there's no knowledge about this field, there's no inbuilt demand for assistance with it, and so you end up. I was the only one, and so this was quite annoying because obviously people aren't looking for what you're selling, so you have a big education job on your hand. But the plus side was that if you get in front of a person and you explain to them, listen, this is what I think you should be doing, you could really blow people's minds. Because, you know, like if they've never heard of any of this like stuff, and if to them strategy is just like, what are we going to do next? Or how do we run our business better? Or something very like flabby like that. Then yeah, I never had a competitive pitch situation in my entire life, right? Because there was nobody ever doing it.
Now, with that, I got one follow up on that before you go, Dad, because I think there's an interesting thing there. It sounds similar to what we've experienced with our coaching in the leadership space. Because Alex, you're saying that there wasn't that much of a knowledge there of the strategy problems. You had to have the education of those kind of pieces. Do you think it was not necessarily that there wasn't the knowledge, but that there was a low level of the knowledge? And what I mean by that is we joke about like strategy, like buzzwords, right? And that it's like, well, people could read the book and they could get the buzzwords and go, well, Alex, come on, I know strategy. I can list out all the vocab words. I got that stuff. And then it's you trying to take it to the next level. Is that where the challenge was, or were people just literally not even knowing the buzzwords on it?
Well, I don't want to go off on a big tangent here because that's actually a sort of bigger question than it sounds.
That I might mean, yeah.
He's really good at that, by the way.
Is that your thing?
Yeah.
It's a good thing for a coach to have, crikey. So it's basically what I've only learned much, much later is that the type of strategy that I talk about and that I talk about in my book, and you might also say, let's say the type of strategy in Blue Ocean Strategy would be another example of this, is, to me, this is just strategy, like building a business that like truly brings something new to its market, that changes the face of its category, and that delivers unique value that other people can't copy, blah, blah, blah. To me, this is strategy. And anyone not doing that is not doing strategy. Now, actually, that's kind of unfair because really that is what I'm describing there is a very sort of aggressive, creative, high level of strategy. Mm-hmm. And actually there's lots and lots of lower level, more kind of optimization directed versions of strategy, which for years and years I've said, that's just not strategy. But actually in truth it is. If we're being sort of dictionary definition about it, anything that you do that just makes your business perform better, you could broadly call that strategy. So to answer your question, yes, these people, in my mind, these people were like, but zero strategy. But that's actually like probably kind of like uncharitable. The truth is that, I think that what you're saying is more accurate, that they were doing it at just a sort of less disruptive and creative lower level. Mm-hmm. Because like, look, to just use the Blue Ocean example, we know that you don't have to have a blue ocean to run a successful business. 99.999% of businesses don't have a blue ocean, and plenty of them are doing fine, better than fine. Mm-hmm. So I've always really, I guess, been preaching a more ambitious form of strategy. And that is the thing which is more foreign to people.
So you've kind of done it, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Just define what you mean by strategy.
Yeah, sure. So I think that the most basic way to think about it, and to me this is the whole job of anybody running a business, is to think, right, well, we all understand the concept of supply and demand, right? That's the most fundamental thing in all of business. Well, what we want with our business is we want to have really high demand, but at the same time, really low supply, by which I mean we're the only people selling it. And everybody should know intuitively that when there's high demand and low supply of something, that thing is very easy to sell, very lucrative to sell. And actually, if that was your business, if you were the only game in town for something that people desperately wanted, if you were the guy with bottles of water in the middle of the desert, your business doesn't even need to be good. It doesn't need to be well run. Your culture can be absolute dirt. Your marketing can be terrible. Everything can be awful, frankly. And that business is still going to be very successful just because that's how it goes. So that is like the ideal that every single business is focusing, is sort of aiming towards. Like, we're all aiming, no matter whether you're a kid selling friendship bracelets out of her bedroom or Halliburton, like, we are all aiming to sell something which loads of people want, and we are the only person that you can get that thing from. And to me, like, and we could just summarize that with the term unique value. We're all aiming to generate unique value for the market, because if you do that, you win. Simple as that. So strategy is just, to me, like, a business's strategy is essentially the unique value that it puts out into the world. And so when I say most businesses have got no strategy, what I'm really saying is that most businesses don't produce unique value, which is true. Like, most businesses, 70-80%, they produce value. So they make something that, yes, people want. But the problem that they have is that you can get that from loads of other places. So they got the value part, but they don't have the unique part. So, and we all know what it's like to run a business like that. That's a commodity business. You have to fight, you have to compete, you have to spend lots of money on marketing, you have to hire great salespeople, and you have to sweat and work the way that most businesses do. There's also just briefly, there's a smaller group of businesses who have the reverse problem, where, like, they do genuinely do something unique. So they say, we are the only people in the world who do whatever. But then their problem typically is that the market doesn't see the value in it. So they find it difficult to attract demand or to get people to really understand what they're for. And that's actually a worse problem than the other problem. To have the unique bit but not the value bit, like, that is worse than having the value. Because if you have the value, you can always hustle your way to success. Whereas if you don't have that, then you're in a much trickier spot. So the number of businesses, though, that have both, vanishingly few. And this is the strategic game. How do we make your business be a business that's got unique value, that's got very, very high demand and very, very low supply? And it's really, like, for obvious reasons, it's like finding a needle in a haystack, an idea like that. Ideas like this are not common. And you have to, and the reason that people can't arrive at them, obviously, is that you have to employ some very counterintuitive, unnatural thinking techniques to unearth these ideas. Because if you come at it in a linear way, which is, again, how most people are running their business, like, who's our target customer? What do they want? Let's give it to them, kind of thing, linear. You're never, like, that's the same linear process that all your competitors are doing. So you're all going to come up with the same answer because you're asking the same questions. So the fun of the game is that then you have to do things in a really weird way to get one of these kind of golden, truly strategic ideas, like your Apples and your Starbuckses and your Ikeas and all the legends.
You kind of hinted at it, but I think it's an interesting piece here of how realistic do you think that is for the average entrepreneur out there? Because, of course, hey, Dad, hey, you want to be the next Apple? You cool with Tribe and Purpose doing that? Yeah, awesome. Okay, cool. We're good with that. Right? We would love to go do that. But at the same time, how many of those kind of businesses are there out there, right? What percentage of businesses actually reach that level of success where they are truly unique in that fashion? Because I think there's a really good point to that, Alex, but I do think there's almost like a tampering of expectations that might be needed for some entrepreneurs out there of, like, hey, but not everybody could be the big, unique Apple or whatever that example is. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's a spectrum at the end of the day. And the good news is that, like, generally speaking, you're going to be judged by the standards of your industry. So, like, if you want to create a new, I don't know, like, running shoe brand, then I'm sorry, but, like, the standards are super high, because that is, like, a really, like, competitive, developed, mature, well-financed, creative industry. And you're not just going to become, another Nike or whatever for nothing. But of course, most businesses, they're operating in much more boring, grimy, B2B, whatever categories. And then, you don't have to be on that. You don't have to be on that Apple level. So I'll give you, like, one example of a client of mine, and it's timely because I spoke to them the other day, which is a good sort of like middle ground example, let's say. And they that what they basically do is they make ready meals. Would you call them ready meals? Would you call them TV dinners? It's like
TV dinner,
right? I think that's what you call them, TV dinners.
Yeah.
So it's TV dinners for kids, right? So like you put it in the microwave, that kind of thing. And there's a few brands in that space in the UK. This is a UK brand, and they're all kind of doing the same sort of thing. And they're all kind of at a bit of a plateau, and there wasn't any sort of breakthrough for them in the market. So like, this is kind of like mid-sized UK company. Mid-sized UK company would be a small company in the American market. So in this scenario, again, we can just look at this and we can say, right, well, this company, like the problem is that they fundamentally aren't providing any unique value, because their product, if they've got a spaghetti bolognese in a box, and this other guy's got a spaghetti bolognese in a box. And not only that, you could actually go and make your own spaghetti bolognese as well. Or you could go to a takeout. Like, it's not great, is it? So, like, without going into, like, the whole sort of, like, whys and wherefores of where we arrived at this, what we reached with them was this realization that, like, the main reason why people would really buy a product like this, that in their minds they were thinking it's all about convenience, and this was that was like the unique value that they thought they were bringing. It's very convenient because it's TV dinner. Yes, it is, but all TV dinners are convenient. That's like a category generic, right? So there's no unique value there. So it's true, but it's not useful. You can't actually win with that. That's just like baked into the pie. So what could we bring more that would be unique value in this space? And basically, as you know, as people who've had kids, getting kids in that sort of 2 to 5 age range to actually eat their food is a complete nightmare. To just finish their meal. Some kids, they'll eat anything you put in front of them, but a lot of them are really annoying about that. My kids certainly are. And then even worse, if you're a parent and you want to give them, like, okay, fine, I know that if I give them pizza, they'll eat it, but if I want to give them something like healthier or more wholesome, they won't eat it. So in the context of the ready meal, what they could do is basically they could make meals which are very kind of like designed to be maximally what the kid thinks that they want. So the stuff that the kid is like, yeah, give me that. But they construct it in such a way that it's like much more healthy than the kid would think. So the idea was like, how can we basically make healthy food that kids will actually eat? The emphasis being on healthy food. That's also crap, right? So you got healthy food over there. That's not interesting. Food that kids will eat. That's not interesting either, because there's lots of junk food kids will eat. How do we create that sort of new category? And we use the ready meal thing as the vehicle for that. So they had to change various things about what they did. But like, long story short, like, in the last couple of years, they've like maybe 3-4x'd something like this off the back of this, and they've completely eaten that whole category. The other ready meals, they've just been sort of crushed by them. And this is not Apple, what we're talking about here. It's fairly humble. But like, it's a good example of like real strategy in action, and a business figuring out finally, well, there is actually something that we can do that people really want, that parents really want. And at the moment, there's no other way of doing this other than us.
That always makes it interesting when you find that thin slice that gets you in the door and then just opens up like that. Let's flip it, or maybe not flip it, but what I'd love for you to do is share a story of a business that you stepped into and you went, oh my God, how the hell did you make it this far? Sort of thing. Because I'm sure you've had a few of those. Share with us one of those favorites of that, please.
Oh man, well, I mean, without like embarrassing anyone, to be honest.
Oh, go ahead and give us their URL and their phone number too.
To be honest, I kind of always think that it never ceases to amaze me how I guess it's because, let me put it this way. I've found there to be almost no correlation. I mean, this is ignoring corporate businesses that have been around for a long time, obviously, like your Porsches and your Cokes and all that, whatever. So just talking about ones that are owner-operated, founder-led. I found that there's almost no correlation between the initial quality of an idea that someone has and whether that business ends up succeeding or not. Because obviously, like, all these ideas, like, before you've actually put them out there in the marketplace, like that, like you have no idea how the marketplace is going to respond. All you know is that the marketplace is going to interpret your business in a way that is different than what you intended. So what you then get is basically all these businesses, and this is the funny thing, you get so many businesses. I'm talking when a business sort of goes from being just a startup and not a sort of real business to actually having traction. So let's go to that sort of 20 million sort of level where you know that you've got like a real business on your hands. Invariably, that business is going to be succeeding for a reason which is nothing close to what the founder of the business thinks it is. These businesses, they're always succeeding by accident. So like this isn't an example of a business where they were like sort of a basket case, because they like, when they first started, they were much better than a basket case, but they're a good example of a business that was not succeeding the way that they thought. So there was this. It's another food and drink one, actually, as it happens by coincidence. But that's good because it makes it easier to explain. So they were basically again, what would you guys call this? Like a granola bar, a sort of fruit and nut bar.
Yeah.
They were actually the first people. The company called Eat Natural. They were the first people in the UK market to sort of bring that concept back in the late 90s. So they were a pretty big brand. But over time, what had happened is that originally that was considered to be a very healthy product. So if you go back to the mid-90s, people would think that those products were super healthy, right? But then we now know that, they've got more sugar in than a Mars bar. And, It's like the whole thing's a bit of a sort of nonsense. And so there are now bars out there which are genuinely, relatively speaking, much healthier, like lower sugar, protein, all that stuff. And these granola bars that we now know that they're not really like that. But this is what they thought, that they were this like super healthy brand. And they were being bought by all the yoga mums and people who are into health and stuff like that. And I was like, guys, this doesn't ring true to me. And what I noticed is that in some grocery stores, the retailers, they were so they have a sort of a healthy section, and then they have the candy section. And some retailers, and this company, they didn't want this and they weren't even aware of this. Some retailers were putting their product in the candy section. And I was like, well, look, these retailers, they're not stupid. They know how products sell. And they know that, like, in the context of candy, your product, it tastes amazing because it's full of sugar, fine. But your product seems healthy when you put it in that context. But when you put it in the context of other healthy stuff, no one's buying it, because it's like, well, why would I buy this unhealthy thing? Because I'm in the healthy section of the store. So basically what we established was that they had no idea about this, and they were very disappointed about it, to be honest. They were basically the unhealthy person's healthy food. The type of person who is extremely unhealthy thought that this was a healthy thing, and they would be like, I'm going to be really good today. I'm going to have one of these instead of a Snickers for my lunch. But the only person who would ever think this is a person who knows nothing about health. And this was good for them. They really had this great market position that they were completely unaware of. The unhealthy person's health food is a good, interesting, high leverage thing, but it's not what they thought they were, and it's not what they wanted to be. So it was a sort of whiplash for them to be like, guys, I'm sorry, but like, your business is not what you think it is. And then they sold to Ferrero, and everyone was very happy. So it was all good.
Yeah, when you have a good exit, it doesn't matter at that point, does it?
No.
So, one of the things, and actually, shameless plug here, I did a Whiskey Words about this a while back. As a career planner, lifelong planner in the military and in business, I've listened to people talk about strategy. And what I've realized, because when I first got out of the Army, I'd hear strategy and I thought, I grew up, we had tactical, operational, and strategic. And I'd hear strategy and I'd think, okay, strategic. Big picture, big hand, little map, where we're going to go and how we're going to have some massive effects. But as I've listened to more people, and I think the one that triggered me to really come to this conclusion, I think it was something that Seth Godin had said. And it was, well, for most people, when they say strategy, that's just their plan. Now, is that how you would also define it?
This is a very big controversial topic in the strategy world. And so let's say a strategy is a plan, but a plan is not a strategy. Mm-hmm. So, like, most people's plans are just like a list of good stuff they're going to do. So if a business says, right, okay, in 2026, we're going to add this product, we're going to hire this team, we're going to go to this market, and we're going to like fire this guy or whatever. I don't know. But it's like a plan of stuff they're going to do, right? That is not a strategy. That is just a plan of like a random box of stuff, which each one of those things in isolation might well be a very good thing to do, but they don't add up to a bigger play in the market. It don't add up to use your sort of hand on the map idea. They don't add up to this idea of like looking at the entire sort of like context and terrain that we're in. We are going to move the business in that direction. And then the reason that a strategy is a plan, but not the other way around, is that if you've got like, let's take that like the kids' TV dinner example that I used there. When they have a strategic idea like what I described there, right, actually what this business needs to do and be about is this, whatever that is, then coming from that, you're going to have a whole long list of stuff that you need to do, but in order to sort of move the business. So like the plan, it is a list, it is a plan, but all of those things are directed at one idea rather than each living independently, like floating around in just like the ether. So like there's no relationship between that feature that you're adding and that market that you're going to move into. These are two isolated random things. Whereas like in the case of the company that I was describing, they would be two things which are both serving that higher idea. And it's this higher idea is another way of, I guess, thinking about it. This is the thing that that like almost no business has. And that's why they are in this sort of planning mode where they're just like making just like a list of good things to do. And they think that this is the sort of, they think they're being very clever. They think this is the highest form of thinking.
Look how hard we're working. That's what they'll say.
Look how
right?
hard we're working. Yeah. And they would say each one of these ideas that we have on our 5-point plan, each one of these ideas has been meticulously thought through. Each one of these ideas is very, very intelligent, blah, 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 blah. And they could all be great ideas and effective and whatever. And that's all true. But there isn't the higher idea that they are subservient to. So again, in the military, I think that people wouldn't make this mistake because obviously like there are layers
of
yes,
strategic... they do. Believe me.
All right.
Oh, don't make that assumption. Believe me, my friend.
Okay. on paper, they wouldn't make this mistake. In reality, they probably make the mistake. They would make the mistake all the time. But I do find it funny the analogy though that you use, because one of a very, very basic example of this is that we can all picture in the military people standing over that map, which is quite a good example because they are looking out at the terrain and they're saying, okay, based on this contextual situation, we should do such and such. And in business, it's the same, except that contextual terrain is your category and the adjacent categories and all that kind of stuff. But most business people, when they're thinking, they don't think on the level of the terrain. They actually only think inside their business and on their relationship with their customers. So they're thinking at a more micro level than the strategic. And one of the easiest bits of advice that you can give to people is like, stop thinking about your customers for 2 minutes and start thinking about the wider terrain of your industry. And just that act of lifting your head up or zooming out, already you're suddenly magically in the strategic mode without trying.
Yeah, and I think it's funny, and I mean, seriously, one of the things that I learned over the years, and I also make a joke about this because I was the chief strategy officer for a business, and I always joke about it because nobody knew what the hell I was doing because nobody understood strategy. So
Yep.
I got to do whatever the hell I want, right? But
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, and this is where I think your IP, your skill set really comes in to help businesses, is because that world is hard. It's so much easier to plan what I'm going to do in the next hour and the hour after that and the day after that. But it's really hard to get out of the weeds, we always called it, and see, well, where are we going? Where is that blue ocean? And how are we going to get there? And how are the actions that I planned for the next hour going to help guide me to get there? And I think that's an interesting aspect when you think about it, and you get that CEO or the executive team or whomever you are working with to get their head out of the weeds and start to look, oh, there's a cliff, or oh wow, look at those wonderful flowers over there, and see that, because otherwise, they are in that reaction mode.
I mean, there's a fun. The psychological aspect of it is quite interesting as well, because I mean, I very basic understanding of it, but the Myers-Briggs personality test, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the second one of those, the sensing versus intuiting, which is a little bit like zoom in thinking versus zoom out thinking, or detail thinking versus big picture thinking. Most jobs in the world require zoom in thinking. And I also read once, which I found very interesting, that when people do that test, something like 85% of people are more on the zoom in side of the spectrum than the zoom out. And so what that then means is that, in a very real sense, I think that like the act of thinking strategically, it just literally doesn't come natural to people, and it's quite sort of painful, because for me, as one of the few people who's in sort of very hard burying the needle on the other end, I can tell you that any form of zoom in activity, like, I can do it, but I have to wrench myself to do it, and there's steam coming out of my ears. If you ask me to read like a document that's like 4 pages long, I'll do it, but it's awful. If you ask me to organize my calendar, like, it's like it cannot be done. Like it's like these things that are simple for other people, I cannot do, because I'm going so far out of my of my natural way of being. And so I just think, well, for other people, it's the same thing, just in the opposite direction, right? And you can't really say to people, hey guys, just be strategic, because that's a little bit like saying to me, like, just like bloody focus and get into the detail. Like it's horrible.
Well, here's a thought that just occurred to me. It's the sense that as humans, we want immediate results, right? I want to put my spear in the pig and eat some pork. I don't want to have to plant a pasture, and maybe that wasn't that good of an example. I want to go to the store and grab the meat,
I take your point.
And have dinner tonight, right? I don't want to have to plant seeds and wait for them to grow, and then get a piglet and grow it to be a. I think I must have watched a video about wild hog hunting or something earlier,
clearly,
because I've got pigs on my mind. But I don't want to do that, right? I want to go to the store and get it, and I think that's probably why strategy is difficult. Because
I mean, I never thought of that. It's a really good point.
Yeah,
I think you're spot on. I think you feel tactics. It feels like you're doing something. You're out there actually, you're out there digging the hole. You feel like you're actually doing something. Whereas when you get into the strategy conversation, it doesn't feel like you're making that much progress. But I think that gets into with the leadership component of it there, of like when we talk about like transformational leadership, that's one of those key qualities of a transformational leader is your ability to sell people on this thing that they can't really feel that much and getting them to buy into these metrics that they don't necessarily feel in their day-to-day job. Like we're changing all these things. Alex, you're not even going to notice for another year, but I've got to get you to commit to that process for the full year to hit that there. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, Alex, of how that leadership component goes in. Because, the strategy is hard to wrap your head around, to your point, Dad. You don't feel it as much. But as a leader, hey, that's our problem to deal with, right?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting one because you have to start on the basis, you have to start with the assumption nobody in your company gives a crap, right? They don't care about that they got a job and they've got a life, and the long-term strategy of the business is kind of not, some people are naturally interested in it, but most people, you'll find that if you just explain it to them in a very straight way, it's sort of, they're like, yeah, kind of not my problem kind of thing. I mean, they won't say that because obviously then you would be very unimpressed, but like that's what's happening under the surface. So what you need to do, and this is actually one of the big benefits of having a really kind of like creative, like blue oceany type strategy, is you need to translate the strategy into some kind of like, I would actually refer to it almost as like a mythic narrative about what is this business doing? What is it trying to fix in the market? Why is that like a good and important thing? The strategy is nested within this, right? But you're putting it into a sort of into a kind of narrative structure, which is very easy for your team to remember and is quite exciting. Because if you think about it, most businesses, right, there's no sense of journey or quest or adventure or excitement to what they're doing. They do a thing, they make a widget, and you come and you work in accounts, and it's this static thing, right? There's no sense you're going anywhere other than maybe like, can we grow our sales or something? Which if I'm just like some random rank and file employee, as long as I get paid, I kind of like really don't sort of care. If we compare that to, a bit, I mean, this is a very unfair example, but just to land the point, obviously compare that to a business like SpaceX, everyone who works there feels like, oh my God, we are on this journey that culminates in putting a human being on Mars, and they all feel very sort of excited and motivated to be part of this thing. And in that particular context, someone like Elon Musk or whoever is a real leader in a literal sense, in a sense that, and this is a funny point, but I always think about it, in a sense that business is going somewhere, right? That business is currently in one position and it's moving to another position. And a leader, by definition, is somebody who leads people into another location. If you are not taking people into another location, by definition, you can't be a leader. If the business is staying in one spot and you're just optimizing that spot, you're a manager, right? Leadership requires movement. It's just the dictionary definition of the thing. So to me, most people who describe themselves as leaders are really managers, because what they're doing is like everyone's staying in the same spot. There is no sense that we are taking this company from over here to over there. There was no sense of journey. There's no sense of quest. So number one, boring company to work for. Number two, there's no leadership required. Right? There's no leadership required because you're all just basically sitting there cranking the handle on the machine, and someone says to you, could you crank that handle a little bit faster, please? And you're like, oh, okay, I will. Right? That's not leadership, right? So like the beauty of the strategy beyond just like making the business commercially effective is that it gives you this sense of journey. And then the second that you have a sense of journey, then the conditions for leadership arise. And yeah, I mean, so how can you be a leader without it is my view.
No. And how do you get buy-in from a team if they don't have anywhere they're going? If you're just maintaining the status quo, you're not going to get that kind of buy-in to get them to put in the work to get better. Yeah.
Yeah. And then everybody, they try to cheat that answer by basically they make a financial destination the target. We want to become number one in our category. We want to like double our sales, whatever it might be. Like that is a standing still destination. That is what happens when you turn the handle on the machine faster, right? That is not a movement destination. So the movement destination has to be about the business doing something differently and generating a change in its industry or the world or whatever, however you frame it. That's the only sort of true kind of like narrative.
I love that. And, I also love having what I learned earlier in the show get superseded by something towards the end of the show.
Oh, there we go.
That was super simple, and I've never thought about it this way because with our leadership, we always talk about as the leader, you got to the team has to believe in the vision that you create for the organization and that movement. I never thought about calling it a quest, and I think there's something a little bit different. Like we're going to go on a quest. Whether it's a crusade or going to the store, but we're going to go on a quest. And I think there's a little that little bit of a word change I think that may have some additional effect on getting that buy-in for the vision. So let's go on a quest. Camden, you ready to go on a quest? What'd you learn?
I'm ready. First one. This one is a question. Alex, earlier we were talking about our different industry examples and of like starting like a running shoe company. When was the last time y'all have seen toe shoes around? Are they dead? Are toe shoes around? You got more running weirdos in Colorado than I do in Arizona. So you might know, Dad.
I haven't seen them in a long time. Your brother was things for a while, killed his feet.
Oh, yeah. No, okay, so good to know the toe shoes are gone. I had that question. And then I got the joke one because my mic messing up. I'll call the elephant in the room. That apparently whoever was driving my little Hellcat down my road here apparently was enough to knock my mic completely out of whack. That's why there was those bird sounds and all of that that wasn't picked up for the whole show. Yeah, so apparently
that's the sound effects button that he's hitting on.
No, that's what that was. So I do love my birds though out here.
Yeah.
There ain't no bird in that birdhouse yet though. I'll let you know when they show up.
Right. Keeping track. Alex, how about you, man? What'd you learn?
I got to say that it's now that you say it, it's crazy. But I had never considered that question of immediacy that you brought up, Otis, and about and this idea that it's not just maybe like a lack of understanding that stops people from doing this work, but just actually the instant gratification of the alternatives. So yeah, I'm gonna write about that. You give me another newsletter.
Awesome.
There you go.
Happy to help out. So Alex, how can people follow you, learn more about what you've got going on, and of course, buy your book too?
Oh, yes. Well, I mean, the book you can get on, Amazon, Audible, all of that stuff. No Bullshit Strategy. So that's definitely the best resource of them all, I would say. And then the second best resource is definitely the newsletter, which is free. And, it's all about essentially just carving your mind into thinking in a strategic way, into thinking in a way which is kind of like the opposite to how all of your competitors are thinking. And I like to say that now, particularly with AI and all the rest of it, like the last real competitive advantage is the way that you think, because at the end of the day, that is the final barrier in all the other stuff that's going on. Underneath it all is you. So if you go to Basic Arts, that's my website, basicarts.org/newsletter, you can subscribe there, and that's definitely the best one.
Awesome. Alex, man, it has been a lot of fun hanging out with you today. We really appreciate your time.
Thanks a lot, guys. Really enjoyed it.
Camden, if you can.
No, man, I don't know if the cops are chasing that dude in the Hellcat or what, but now I got about 5 cop cars on the street, it sounds like. So I can run the outro. It's getting some authentic Tucson background noise. So there you go.
That's nice. That's nice.
But all right, well, thank y'all for listening to today's episode of 10X Your Team with Cam and Otis. And a special thanks to our guest, Alex Smith, for joining us today. Remember, you can watch full episodes of the show on YouTube at 10X Your Team. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure to pass it along to other lifelong learners in your tribe so they can enjoy it too. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. As always, that full archive of episodes available at www.10xyourteam.net. Thanks again. We'll see y'all next time.